Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru, and today we're going to talk about the meta-slasher horror film, Scream 6. Now, while it is true Scream 6 is the 6th entry in the Scream franchise, it is actually the 2nd entry by Team Radio Silence, the filmmaking team behind such films as Devil's Due and Ready or Not. One of which I think is just okay, and the other of which I think is fucking awesome. And with their first Scream film, of course, being the previous Scream film, the one simply titled Scream, but for the sake of all of our sanities, I'm gonna call it Scream 5 from here on out. And as for Scream 5, I thought it was pretty damn good. It showed not only could the Scream franchise live beyond Wes Craven, it could even continue on without Kevin Williamson while still being pretty fun. It simultaneously stayed true to the vibe of the original Scream films, while also introducing a whole lot of new concepts and new characters that prove the series could continue to evolve into the modern day and still stay fresh. And that is no easy feat because the Scream franchise is pretty formulaic when you get right down to it. So the fact they were able to shock and surprise me 5 entries in is an automatic 2 thumbs up in my book.
Combo breaker!
But even with all that being said, I did have some criticisms of the 5th entry. There were aspects of it that I thought were executed a little clunkily, if that makes sense. And truth be told, I thought the lead actress was kind of bland and boring in the 5th entry. But with those criticisms aside, I had a blast with the 5th entry, which begs the question, how do I feel about the 6th entry? Is it as good and as shocking and as fun as the 5th entry? Or is it total crap? Well, my fellow Gorehounds, I am quite sad to report that Scream 6 is insane. Like, this movie is completely nuts. It is the most bonkers Scream film that they have made to date, which is saying a lot because the Scream franchise can get pretty fucking wacky. And I fucking love it. Now, don't get me wrong, Scream 6 is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. The movie is practically held together with glue and duct tape, for fuck's sake. But it is a film that once it kicks into gear, it just keeps on going, and you just gotta keep up. You're either on board with this insanity train, or you're not, and I was 100% in. This film managed to completely shock and surprise me with its opening kill of all things. Or should I say, opening kills? But the point is, from the opening scene on, this film managed to do what the 5th film did, but on steroids. And I don't mean it copied the 5th film plot beat by plot beat. It does something completely different, but that's exactly what I mean. Much like the 5th film, this film introduces a whole lot of new ideas, but still at the end of the day, feels like Scream. These motherfuckers did it twice! Hell, this movie even has some aspects that are pretty damn clunky, but they're clunky in a completely different way than the previous film's problems were. That said, the same actress from Scream 5 also plays the lead in Scream 6, and I actually liked her a lot better here than I did in the previous film, so that's actually an improvement. But I honestly don't know if that's just because we had gone through a whole movie with her at this point, so she's kind of grown on me over time, or if her performance in this one and the writing around her in this one were just overall better. I tend to lean on that, but it's entirely possible it's the other thing. Either way, I like her now, so woo! And also, this might be the most brutal Ghostface a Scream film has ever seen. This motherfucker was taking no prisoners, and for the first time since maybe the first Scream film, I was actually scared of a Ghostface. Me, the Horror Guru, scared of a Ghostface. What the fuck? Now that being said, and this will entirely depend upon your taste whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, the actual reveal of the Ghostface, when they actually show us who Ghostface is at the end of this film, it is without a doubt the most over-the-top Ghostface reveal we've had yet. It definitely made them less scary, though it also made them a whole lot of fun, so I was fine with it.
Dude, you're literally not going to believe this, but I give 0 fucks! Literally 0 fucks! Literally!
Though the reveal did make something that happened earlier in the movie make a whole lot less sense, but I'll talk about that when we get to the spoiler section. And there is one other thing I'll say about the Ghostface reveal. There's a lot of things that happen earlier in the movie where certain characters behave in ways that don't make a lot of sense, but do make a lot of sense once the Ghostface is revealed. So I kind of had a bunch of criticisms piling up as the movie went on, but once the Ghostface was revealed, all those criticisms went away and a new one formed over the one thing that bugged me. But what can you do? That one criticism is better than the ones that were all piling up. But enough about the Ghostface reveal. What about the other characters in this movie? How do I feel about them? Well, the core four, as they're called in this film, or the characters who survived the ordeal in the previous film, they continue to be an enjoyable bunch, and I love them just as much as I loved them in the previous film, maybe even more so because having seen them gone through a whole movie at this point just makes me endeared to them even more, and
I'm not entirely sure if these movies need the legacy characters anymore.
Because these characters carry so much of this film on their backs that I don't know if we need Gale anymore. I don't know if we need Sydney anymore. I know there was that whole controversy over the fact that Sydney was not going to be in this film because they refused to pay her what she's worth, which is bullshit, by the way. They should pay her what she's worth. But that aside, I'm actually kind of glad she wasn't in this movie because this movie didn't need her. I don't even think it necessarily needed Gale. That being said, I didn't have a problem with Gale in this film. In fact, she has one of the most badass moments in the entire movie, and you can kind of tell that the moment was originally written for someone else, and she just kind of inherited it by default, but it still worked. And finally, this movie marked the return of fan favorite Kirby from Part 4, who we originally thought had died in that movie, but it turns out actually survived, and she's pretty awesome. It was kind of nice to see her again. I really hope that they don't rely on her or Gale going forward, but it was still nice to see her. Now, what about the meta commentary of the film? Does that hold up to previous Scream entries? And the answer to that is a yes and a no. On one hand, I love the social commentary about social media and its connection to fandoms, which kind of builds upon something that was started in the fifth film. And I also like this film's conceit of we're a franchise now, therefore there are no rules anymore. But I did feel that some of the scenes in which the characters were actually talking about that were some of the clunkier scenes in the film. And I can't tell if that's an acting problem or a writing problem. It's just when you compare them to the scenes in like the Kevin Williamson films when the characters would just so naturally talk about like, oh, this is the rules of sequels. This movie, just the way the characters interacted and talked about it just felt a little bit forced in comparison. Which is too bad, because all the other interactions with these characters feel so natural and great, it would have been nice if those scenes also felt that way. But what can you do? Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, Scream 6 is not a perfect film, but it is a totally bonkers film that I had a blast with, and you probably will too, if you like the Scream films, especially the last one, Scream 5. And I, for one, am eagerly awaiting a Scream 7. I just hope that they give the legacy characters a break and allow these new characters to shine on their own next time around. That's something I would really like to see. And if you're at all curious where this film sits on my personal rankings of the Scream films, here is my letterboxed rankings of the Scream franchise, and feel free to comment below with your own rankings, and that way we can all argue over which one's the best. Though we all know the best is actually the first Scream, and if you disagree, you're wrong. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers. Alright, so the first spoiler I really want to talk about that's really fucking awesome is I fucking adored the way this movie opened up. They did this cool thing where we watch as one character gets stalked and killed by a Ghostface killer, only for that Ghostface killer to go back to his apartment and then get stalked and killed by a completely different Ghostface killer. So this is a movie that opens up with two independently operating Ghostface killer teams who are kind of vying to be the main antagonists of the film, and one of them kills the other team, then becomes the dominant killer for the rest of the film, which is the most insane opening to any Ghostface film yet. Ghostface film, Scream film, the most insane opening to any Scream film yet. And that's just the opening scene. The other spoiler thing I really want to talk about is this really cool moment with Gale Weathers when she's being stalked by the Ghostface killer, and she uses redial on her phone to track where the Ghostface is in her apartment, which is just brilliant. It's one of those things you think of in the theater and a character never actually does it on screen, but here she actually does it, and it was fucking awesome! And the last thing I want to talk about in the spoiler section is the ultimate Ghostface reveal and the problems it solved and the problems it created. So, the ultimate reveal of the Ghostface in this film is that there's actually 3 Ghostface killers this time around, not counting the Ghostface killers in the opening scene, of course. One of the killers turns out to be a character who actually died earlier in the movie, or at least we thought she died to Ghostface, but then it turns out she's actually a Ghostface herself, and it was all a fake out.
Got him!
And the Ghostfaces were able to pull off this fake out because one of the Ghostfaces is the cop who's been helping the Core 4 throughout the entire movie, which actually solved one of the problems I was having up until that point in the movie, because that cop kept doing shit that felt very like
Flat out stupid.
but made much more sense once it was revealed that he's a Ghostface killer and he's trying to trap them. So good on ya, movie, you completely tricked me with that one. That being said, the third Ghostface in this trio of Ghostfaces is actually where one of my criticisms of the movie lies, because it turns out the third Ghostface is one of their friends that has kind of been acting as a red herring for most of the movie, and then it turns out he's not a red herring. Him being a red herring was the red herring, which is just mind-boggling.
It's Red Herring!
But that's not my problem with this movie. My problem with this movie is simply this. That character early on in the movie actually saved the life of another character, which was great for us, the audience, because it tricked us into believing, oh, he can't possibly be a Ghostface. And I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense if he's one of the Ghostfaces for him to have done that in that circumstance. I think a simple fix to this would have been to have one of the other characters with them when that happens so that he could be playing it up for both of them to trick both of them into believing he's not Ghostface and not just the audience. It's just a little clunky. It could have been better.
Life is good, but it can be better.
That being said, the reveal that they are the family members of the killer from the 5th film, I was totally down with all that. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, that's Scream 6, a clunky ass, bonkers ass film that I had a ton of fun with, and hopefully you will have fun too. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out my channel more directly, be sure to check out my Patreon page. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way. And if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below, using the hashtag RedialGhostface. Use the hashtag RedialGhostface, work it into your comment however you please. That way I know, that way the world knows, that way Jack, wherever he is, knows that you watched this video all the way through. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out, and I'll catch y'all later.